Ready?
You're on.
Oh, okay, so today we're starting Chaf Ches. Good morning.
What's that, Rabbi?
We're starting 28b. We're on the bottom of the page.
Oh, I think I studied that yesterday.
Ezel Muktzah. What is something that's designated to be brought as a sacrifice? Or maybe it means designated to worship. Designated to be brought as a sacrifice. For idolatry.
28b, you said?
28b, it's towards the bottom. Probably it's designated to be brought as a sacrifice is usually the term for muktzah. Designated to be brought as. Muktzah means designated. The word muktzah on Shabbos means that it's designated for non-use. Set aside that we don't use it on Shabbos. That's what muktzah means. So Amar Reish Lakish.
It's the same like we say with cherem.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's just another one of those words that go both ways.
Interesting. Amar Reish Lakish says, Ein. Again. Ein muktzah aser.
Yeah, okay.
Muktzah is only aser. Ela muktzah l'sheva shanim. Only for the first 7 years. After 7 years, it's not considered muktzah. It's what's it called? After a certain amount of time, they don't can't bring a case against the
Beyond the statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations, yeah. Anyway, muktzah has 7 years.
In this case, it's the statute of limitations.
Statute, yeah. So you have 7 years for that. After 7 years, the animal is not considered eligible to be a sacrifice for an idol, so it's clean. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, this is in Shoftim 6, Judges 6. Vayihi balayla hahu, it wasn't that night. Vayirmelei Hashem, Hashem tells him, or it's the angel tells him, or Hashem tells him, Kachas parasha asher lavicha, take the ox that is to your father, parasheni sheva shanim, and the second ox, second bull that's there for 7 years. Now, what was going on over there was Gidon. The tribe of Midian would come into the Jewish camp and they would just attack and take things, and the people were terrorized by Midian. So it was one time that Gidon and his father were threshing the grain in a wine press, it says. And Gidon tells his father that you go home and I'll do this myself. So because of that respect he had for his father, so he gets this prophecy. And the angel comes to him and says that something that you're great, you're going to help the people. He said, how do I know if it's true? And then he says, well, take this bull that's your father set aside for 7 years and bring it as a sacrifice. And he does that. No, there's a problem over there because it was set aside by his father for a sacrifice for idolatries, but they were worshipping idols. There was, as
but
we'll see.
7 years had passed.
But the 7 years had passed, and this is the proof. The Gemara says, "V'hasam b'lechud havi nevad nami havi." What are you saying? That was just set aside for sacrifice. That was even worshipped. Amra Bacha Bar Yaakov muktzah la'avod v'lo yavdu. It was set aside for worship, but it wasn't actually worshipped. Rava Amar Leilam Avdu. Rava says no, they worshipped it. V'chidushu. But it's nevertheless, you can't learn from this that you're allowed to offer a sacrifice. That you're allowed to offer a sacrifice of something that was worshipped, even something that was worshipped as an idol. Kid Rabba Bar Kahana, Damar Rabba Bar Kahana, because Rabba Bar Kahana says the following. He says, Shmeina Dvar Mitir B'Salayla. That night was an exception. There were 8 things that were permitted that night that are normally forbidden. The first one is chutz. Gidon was told to bring a sacrifice outside the Mishkan. We're talking about, this was the time of Mishkan Shiloh, correct? And when Shiloh was around, you had to bring the korbanos to the Mishkan. It wasn't in between. In between, we had the bamas were mutter, but this was the time of Shiloh. V'layla, they brought a sacrifice at night. The zaras, there was no kayin there. They need a chayin by a bama. But anyway, it doesn't matter because there was the bamas were usher. So, kli sharis, they didn't have the right utensils. Kli ashera, the utensils were used for the wrong ones, right? And va'atzi ashera, the wood that was used, because it says they were supposed to cut down something and use it for the wood. Umukta, the animal was designated for Avodah Zarah. V'never it was also worshipped. That's all 8. Okay.
Messed up.
I'm sorry?
They really messed up.
Yeah.
So they're saying that therefore it was not.
Therefore,
you cannot learn from this.
You can't learn from that. Was a big
chiddush.
chiddush. That was a big exception. They were able to do all of those things. That's a big exception. Okay, Amar Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, Amar Rav Yeshia. Rav Tuvi Bar Masna says in the name of Rav Yeshia, Minayin lemuktzah min haTorah. How do we know? Right here, when we're asking the question, we think, how do you know that you need to designate an animal before you actually sacrifice it? You can't just say, here's my sacrifice and sacrifice it. You have to designate it and guard it.
This will be.
And then you bring it later. There has to be a 2-step process. Shenemar, which halacha made it more exciting? Shenemar, as it says, Tishmeru lahakriv li. You should guard to bring to me. Aha! You should guard it. That means you have to designate it first. You watch it, and then you bring it. B'mayadai. I don't know if B'mayadai is supposed to be in there. Tishmeru lahakriv li. Yeah, B'mayadai is taken. Kol sha'isen l'shima. You have to watch it that it should be a carbon. Maskefla Abaya. Abaya asks him, Rav Tuvi Bar Masna, Elamayata Isis Imra Ditsuma V'le'avad Le'shimar Achinami D'Leichazal Akrava. What's going on over here? If you take a sheep, Imra is a sheep, Ditsuma, that's fasting, like a tzayim, fast, that you didn't guard it, you can't bring it as a sacrifice. Well, that's actually what he's saying, but Abaya is like surprised about this. Amarlei, so he responds on a Tishmer lahakriv li kamina li v'leila danachar. I didn't mean that it needed to be guarded. I'm saying that what's the source that you're not allowed to bring an animal to Hashem that was designated for an idol, to be brought to an idol for Avodah Zarah. That's what I was saying. Not that you have to designate every sacrifice before you offer it. I was saying the contrast, that you can't bring an animal that was designated for the opposite, for an idol. Like what would be something else that you would bring an animal to? That's for an idol. Okay. Gonna have to discuss why do we need this pasuk.
Yeah, he's not available.
Amar Rava bar Rav Ada Amar Rav Yitzchak. Rava, the son of Rav Ada, says the name of Rav Yitzchak. Rav Yitzchak, I think, was. If we have it here, yeah, we do have a Rav Yitzchak here, but we don't have the other Rava. Anyone remember what Rava's father's name is?
Abba. Rabba Abba. It's a joke.
Tati. Good as that's Tati.
Very good.
Quick question. We're talking in all cases here about a Jew who designated or did something, not a goy. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if there would be a difference, but yeah, because we're dealing with the animal. If it would be an Avodah Zarah itself, there is a difference if it's a guy's Avodah Zarah, because a guy can get rid of the Avodah Zarah, a Jew can never get rid of that. But I don't know if there's a difference here. So he says, "Ein muktzah aser ela ad sheyavdu." These types of phrases, "ein ela," it's very difficult to translate into English.
Right.
The reason why is because the translation is very confusing. It's muktzah is not aser until it's
Actually worshipped.
or worked. Muktzah is not aser until it's worked. Now, what does that mean? That if I designate it, but I don't do something for it, it's not aser. Or it doesn't mean muktzah is only usr until it's worked, but after it's worked, it's okay. So is it saying beforehand, or is it saying it's only usr?
Because the work would nullify
Does the word
the
nullify
previous
it,
designation. 'Cause
Or-
you're treating it as coolant.
or is it a condition? Ein mukta usr ella could mean unless, or it could mean only until. Rashi says it's only until. Rashi brings the first shot, he brings the second shot. Rava bar Yosef. Oh. Abba ben Yosef bar Chama. Oh, it's Rabbi Abba. So you see, his father's name isn't Abba. His name is Abba.
Well, I was just joking.
Close. Give him half a trophy for that one.
Funny.
You see, John Mark?
Classic.
Very interesting. Okay. Ula. Okay, so what we're learning here is the statement from Rava is that muktzah is only usr until you do something to the animal, or you do something with the animal that's beneficial for the priests of the Avodah Zarah. Once they do any personal use out of it, then it's already not a sacrifice for the idol, and then you could take it back and you could use it for your own
It
things,
took
because
off
they've
its
already used
designation.
it. They took off the designation. Ulam Rabbi Yochanan ad shemasru l'kaimri avodas kechavim. Ula says until it's given over to the priests of the idol to eat. If it's given for them to eat, then it's not considered for the idol anymore. It's given to them for food.
But we're talking about the Goyim?
I don't know. Jews also worshipped idols. So Beha Amar Rabbi Yochanan, or it could be the name should be what's it? What's the other word for this? Beha? Basa? Basa. Beha or Basa. It says the name of Rabbi Yochanan. So mentioned yesterday that 2 days ago, that every Masechta has one unique name that you don't find anywhere else. This may be ours.
No, that was, you mentioned that in the fake
And
Yerushalmi, he put the names that didn't exist.
Okay. No, but I think
That's what
really
threw it
every
off.
Masechta has one name also. So he didn't find. Yeah, I think he didn't find it in the Yerushalmi. Every Masechta has one unique name, and in the Yerushalmi he didn't have it. So he said it can't be. So anyway, whatever the case is, Beya says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, you have to feed it. You feed it this type of grain that fattens it up. Why were they fattening it up? Because they're getting ready to eat it, and they want to eat it. So it's not going to be sacrificed. It's going to be eaten. So then it's going to be accepted. Amle Rababa lebeya. Rababa tells the Beya, Mafal Gisu atana Ula. You're arguing on Ula. Okay. Ula says the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Beya says the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Ula said the name of Rabbi Yochanan that once he handed over to the priests, and Beya said until once they feed it. Amalei loy. Beya says no, I'm not arguing on Ula. Ula nami kika amarhu the shafi lekashin avedis kechavim. That's what Ula was saying. I'm just explaining what Ula's saying. They gave it over to the priests. Why? Because they wanted to feed it this corn, to make it fat, and so that it should be plump, good meat for eating. Amar Abba. Rabba says.
Oh wait, so the argument was when they said fed, whether or not it was feeding the idolatrous priests, they ate it, or it was just the animal was being fed. In other words, who was the subject of being
Oh really?
fed?
I didn't learn it like that. I learned it that it says when they gave it over to the priests. That's one opinion. Other opinion says when they start to feed it this corn or this so he's explaining when they gave it over to the priests, that was the reason for that. They gave it over to feed it, to fatten it up. I was explaining what it meant to give it over to them. Is that how they're explaining it?
No, I'm just thinking of that way.
That's the third
Don't
one.
take
This
everything
third
out
one.
of my mouth.
It says here that the being that they fed them, the vetch, it says,
Vetch, okay.
had been designated for sacrifice. Is that what it says? That feed that was designated, not the animal. In any case,
No, that's the first pshat. That would be if we read it the other way, Ella Ad.
yeah.
That's if we read the Ella Ad only until they fed it.
Uh-huh.
That would be if we were reading it the other way. Must be. But we're not reading it that way. We're doing it. It must be, that's the pshat, right?
Here it says that even though it's consumed mostly by animals, the seeds are edible for humans. And because they're edible for humans, it has to be miser. And even though their truma was usually fed to the animals of the Kohanim.
Okay. That's just explaining the kashini, what this type of grain is.
It's like a legume, it says. It's high in nutritional value for animals and easily digested.
Very good.
You don't fetch when you eat
You're on top of your game this morning.
That's what really
You
sleep.
see it?
It's the bean, there it is.
Did you hear the advertisement for it?
I don't know.
What is that?
That's
This vesh.
Oh,
This Kashinan? Not a vesh.
Never forget.
Never.
Amar Rababa. Rababa says, Yada Beha Lishnui Shmaitza. Beya knows how to answer up the statement. Ilai de Salakasam Leabi Yada. There it's Yisrael Garmalite. If he, it's supposed to be Hassam, that's weird. What's the Yud Aleph? May Hassam. Salak May Hassam. If he didn't come from there, he wouldn't have been able to. It's Eretz Yisrael that made him so smart. The Beya came from Bavel. Huh?
Astut.
From the
Astute.
ear.
He
right?
came astute from moving to Israel. So Amalei Reb Yitzchak says back to Rababa, Beya mikan haven. No. Beya comes from Bavel also. He was a Talmud Chacham already in Bavel. Don't think it's all of your country. Rababa was in Israel. Reb Yitzchak was from Bavel. How were they communicating? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay. Titani. Okay, this is not Titani. It's supposed to be Tani. This is a new piece. Not a different topic, just another statement. Tani Rab Chananya Trita Kamed Rab Yochanan. Rab Chananya Trita said in front of Rab Yochanan, Ein muktzah aser ela ad sheyasu by maisa. Muktzah, something that's designated as a sacrifice for idolatry, is only prohibited until an action is done to it. Hutanila v'hadaramala, I guess it means, and then he taught us, and then he explained, my ma'aseh he goes as v'yavdavai. Until you shear the wool and you start to work it, then you see that it's not, you're not keeping it as a idolatrous sacrifice. Ezu nevad. What is something that's worshipped? We said that it becomes aser, and what's on top of it's aser. I mentioned this when you're trying to learn Gemara on your own. So whenever you have a quote from the Mishnah and then it says chulu, etc., it's very important to look up that chulu to see what is that, etc., what is it referring to, because or else you're going to study the Gemara and many times it's not going to make any sense at all, because what the Gemara is referring to, the etc., that exactly the piece that's not quoted. So here, if you go back, I experienced this. I remember in Yeshiva, I was spending 1 hour on one line of Gemara. I could not figure it out. I kept going, and then I realized I missed the V'chul. I went back, and it was like, the whole thing was, it's like, what's going on? Because I was working, back and forth, like, it's just that one point. So what does it say here? V'chul says, v'zeh v'zeh mutar b'achila. Muktzah, you're allowed to eat. An animal that's worshipped, you're allowed to eat. It's only forbidden to offer as a sacrifice. The Gemara asks, Minohani mili, how do you know that you're allowed to eat it? It's all in what's not quoted. Amar of Papa, it's a simple skill, but it could turn someone, a young student off. You could say, I can't learn Gemara, I tried for an hour. Okay, Amar of Papa says, Damakra mimashki Yisrael. This is in Yechezkel. It says that what sacrifice you're allowed to bring, that's things that are permissible for a Jew. Min mutal Yisrael. What a Jew can eat, that's what you can bring as a sacrifice. Now if you would say that you're not allowed to eat an animal that's muktzah, or an animal that's neva, so lehedyet, asir lehedyet, so lama likra matina mikavaya. Why do I need a pasuk to say? Why do I need a pasuk to say that I can't bring it as a sacrifice? If I can't eat it, so yesterday's whole Gemara that we learned. Good morning, Rabbi Karis. Yesterday's whole Gemara, we learned all these extra words in the pasuk, min behema, min atzayin, all of that you can't bring certain animals as a sacrifice. If you can't eat it yourself, if it's not kosher for consumption, then I don't need yesterday's psukim, min habaka, min atzayin. All of those things are not necessary because I can't bring it for a sacrifice because I can't eat it. So it must be, that's the raya, that I'm allowed to eat it. And it's only prohibited as a sacrifice, as a korban. The Gemara says, 1 second. If it's forbidden for a person to eat, I don't need a pasuk to exclude it from being a sacrifice. What about a treifa animal? An animal that's has some illness that would die. Over there, we need a special pasuk to exclude it from a sacrifice, even though we know that it's unfit for kosher consumption. The Tanya, it's taught in a brayso. What happened here is, like we said yesterday, that when the sacrifices are introduced, it says min habakar, min atzayin. It gives the options. Then afterwards, in each sacrifice, it says again, v'im min habakar, v'im min atzayin. So the Gemara says from that why does it need to say twice? So one of them is to exclude a treifa, and one of them is to exclude an animal that's worshipped. Okay. Shein Talmud Laim, it doesn't have to say it twice. El Lahitzias a treifa, it's coming to exclude that you can't offer a treifa. Treifa means an animal, a kosher animal that's not well, that has one of those defects. So I have a special pasuk that tells me I can't offer it as, even though I can't offer it as a sacrifice, even though it's very clear that I can't eat it. So you see, I need a pasuk to exclude it as a sacrifice, even though it's not kosher.
And min habakar comes to exclude it?
Yeah, because it says min, from. That means not all. That's what we were learning. That
Okay.
the Gemara says yitzchach. That would be different, because salka daita chamina hanimili denitrva v'achakach niskadsha. Aval niskadsha v'achakach nitrva emed detishri legavaya. Oh, you see, by treifa, I have possibilities that it became a treifa, and then I consecrated it. So I could say,
No, I think the opposite. No? You consecrated and then it became a tree.
I have both options. But what would be prohibited? What would be prohibited from the pasuk of min habakar? That would be if it was consecrated first. First I consecrated it. So in other words, the consecration was done correctly. Then it becomes a treifa. Gets some defect, some illness, some hole in the lungs or something, whatever, or something visible, some defect. So then I would say, oh, thank you. So then I would say, min habakar, you can't bring it now. However, what about the pasuk of mimashke Yisrael, only things that are permissible to eat? So for something that's permissible to eat, that I would say that's forbidding, that's coming to tell me that if it was a treifa first, and then you tried to consecrate it, he says, no, that's too late already. You can't even eat it. You can't even eat it, you can't consecrate it. So mimashke Yisrael would tell me, nitrafa v'achakach niskacha, and min habakar, no, mimashke Yisrael means only kosher things can be offered to God. But minabaka, that special pasuk would tell me that if it was consecrated first and then it became treif, that's also not good. The Gemara says, "V'hamei hachanafka." I have a third place. It says, "Kol asher yaver tachas hashevet." Anything by meiser, it says the animals that go under the staff, prat l'treifa she'nei veres. This is excluding a treifa. Doesn't go in here. Why? We said because the treifa, we're talking about a treifa that's missing the lower part of its leg that can't walk under. So we have another exclusion of a treifa from being offered as a sacrifice. Why do I need an exclusion? Mimashke Yisrael, right? So it says Hunami Yitzrich. But that's also necessary. And Salkadait Chamina could have entered your mind to say, Hani milihechid loyhais l'shasa kosher. That's if it was never eligible. The nol de treifim me'ima. See, Mashke Yisrael would be the first case. Only something that had eligibility from the very beginning. But this doesn't have eligibility from the very beginning. Why? Because when it was born, it was already born as a treifa. That's how the Gemara is learning this. Aval heichadais l'shasa kosher. But if at one point it was eligible to be eaten. But then, and then afterwards it comes out, when it comes out, it becomes a treifa. I would say that it's still permissible. So I need the pasuk to tell me not, kamash malan. So what's the third one? The third one is to tell me that when it was consecrated. If it was consecrated first and then it became treif. Right? So I have three steps. It came out treif. It came out kosher, but became treif and then was consecrated. Or it came out kosher, was consecrated, and then became treif. So that's why we have three sources. What are we saying here? That nevertheless, muktzah and nevad are permissible to eat. Why is nevad permissible to eat? It was worshipped.
7 years.
Oh, it's not. No, 7 years, I would be allowed to bring it as a sacrifice. This we're after 7 years.
Right.
No, but I'm talking about within the 7 years where you can't bring it as a sacrifice, but nevertheless, I'm allowed to eat it. Why are you allowed to eat it? Because it's natural. Anything that was...
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
It should be an Isser Hana, but it only becomes Isser Bana if it was formed by a human. But because this was born naturally, it's an animal. So I can't make it forbidden Asr Ba'ana. I can only make it forbidden for to be brought as a sacrifice. If I would make a molten image, that's Asr Ba'ana. But an animal can't be Asr Ba'ana. Okay. The Mishnah says, Veizu Esnan. What is an Esnan? Esnan is payment to a prostitute. That animal that's given is not allowed to be brought as a sacrifice. So it carries around this prohibition on it. Whatever hands it changes or whatever, but it carries around this prohibition. It can never be brought as a sacrifice. Someone tells to a zaina, a prostitute, take this sheep as your payment. Even if they're 100, the Gemara is going to discuss why this is a chiddush. Kula nasurin. They're all prohibited to be brought as a sacrifice. If someone tells his friend, take the sheep and let your maidservant, a female slave, lay with my servant. We're going to see why this is what the prohibition is.
No.
Did we do this yesterday? We mentioned that these are forbidden for sacrifice. Now we're getting into what exactly is an esnan. So this is a machlekes.
Wait, so why wasn't all Yehuda's sheep prohibited?
To be brought as a sacrifice? Because he gave. Oh, did he say? He said he was going to give one.
The excuse gave me others,
Right.
but he never gave it. But it says if the intent was to give it, according to this.
So hold it till we get to the end of the sugya, but hold it till then.
Hold it. Wait
Then
for it.
we'll re-examine. Rebbe Aimer. I didn't look up. They said to look in the Taisus Yom Tov what this is. I didn't look that up. Rebbe Aimer Einay Esnan Rebbe says that if someone says that it's not an esnan, v'chachamim esnan, that is an esnan. What we're talking about here is...
It says Rabbi Meir says.
Oh, good. I have Rabbi Meir also, but then I also have I have Meir in parentheses. You have Meir? Very good.
It says the Gemara says this opinion is Rebbe, not Rebbe Meir.
Okay.
That's why there's some parentheses.
I noticed recently in Steinsaltz, he tries to be very accurate with the Prince and the Rambam. I don't know if you use the Steinsaltz, use the. So in the Rambam recently, he says it's Mamzer Talmud Chacham is greater than a Kohen Gadol Amaretz. But I saw in the Steinsaltz Rambam, he says Mamzer Talmid Chachamim. Instead of the term Talmud Chacham, he says Talmid Chachamim. So that's unique. Then I see again, he says Talmid Chachamim about another thing. Mavaza Talmid Chachamim. So I looked it up and they showed the Frankel Rambam says the manuscripts. He says no, the Rambam always says Talmid Chachamim. And the Steinsaltz quotes from the manuscripts. He uses the accurate.
But there's
Does it
a
say
big
Talmid?
difference.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
But apparently the Rambam's doesn't have the word Talmud Chacham in his
Does it
vernacular.
say Talmid Chachamim or
Tal-
Talmidei?
No, Talmid Chachamim. It's a new translation. He's a student of teachers. Anyway, I'm just saying because he has Reb Meir, so he must have had some manuscript. That's okay. What we're talking